Welcome back, and thank you for tuning into Midnight Affairs Tales. We appreciate every single one of you. We'd love to know what part of the world you are watching from right now. Let us know in the comments. Now let's dive into today's story. Chapter 1. Combat Drill Arena, 0600 hours. The crowd didn't cheer. They gasped. Lily Harper hit the mat with a dull thud, flat on her back, dust blooming around her like smoke from an explosion. The air left her lungs in a single, broken sound. Her chest rose once. Then, stillness. Across from her, Brandon Shaw, smirking, fist raised, tilted his head like a predator admiring its kill. From the stands, James Harper stood motionless. His face didn't twitch. His fists were clenched behind his back, the same way they had been the day he carried a friend's body off a battlefield in Kandahar. "Get up," he muttered under his breath. No one heard him. Not the crowd. Not the referees. Not Lily. But she did. Her hand curled. A murmur rippled through the bleachers. Whispers. "She's done for. Why'd they even let her in? He's the general's kid. She should have known better." Brandon circled her slowly, like a wolf around a dying deer. His voice cut through the silence like a razor. "Yes, your daddy forgot to teach you how to fall." And then she moved. Slowly, painfully, Lily rolled to her side, eyes locked on him. Her lip was split. Blood smeared her cheek. But she didn't blink. Brandon's smirk faltered for half a second. From the shadows, James whispered to no one, to ghosts maybe. "That's it. Don't give them silence. Make them fear it." And Lily smiled. "Before we move ahead, I just want to say, your support truly means everything. We're building something special here, and our next big goal is reaching 10,000 incredible subscribers. If you're feeling the emotions in these stories, imagine what's still to come. Subscribe now, be part of this amazing journey, and let's keep growing together. Your one click can make a real difference." Let's continue the story. 3 weeks earlier, James Harper watched the coffee drip into his cup like blood from a wound. The morning news flickered in the background. Diplomatic failures, another Pentagon scandal. Same as yesterday. Same as always. He stood in the kitchen, barefoot on cold tiles, hands calloused, face lined like carved stone. His daughter sat silently at the table, books open but unread. Her cadet uniform looked oversized. Or maybe it was the weight on her shoulders that made it hang that way. "Toast's gonna burn," James said. Lily didn't answer. She stared at the table like it had answers she couldn't find. James turned off the toaster, tossed the slices on a plate, and sat across from her. He watched her for a long beat. Too long. "What happened yesterday?" he asked. She blinked once. Twice. Then shrugged. "Nothing." His jaw twitched. Nothing was the word soldiers used when their squad got wiped and they couldn't cry about it. Nothing meant everything. He reached into a drawer and placed a folded napkin on the table. Inside, a cracked thumb drive. Lily's eyes widened. "You left it in the wash," he said. "You recorded your drills?" She didn't speak. James plugged the drive into his laptop. The footage played, jerky, chaotic clips. A shove. A laugh. The name, Brandon, barked like a command. Then Lily, alone, bleeding, crawling off screen. He paused the video. His voice dropped. "You want me to fix this?" Her silence was answer enough. "No," she said finally, barely above a whisper. "Teach me." The academy smelled like old sweat, cheap polish, and pride. Cadet Lily Harper was assigned designation 047. That number would haunt her for the next 2 years. On her locker, her helmet, her back. The lowest performing recruits got numbers in the 040s. Everyone knew it. The first day was a blur of whistles, ranks, and smirks. Brandon Shaw walked past her during uniform inspection and didn't even look at her. He looked through her, as if she didn't exist. By lunch, she was ghost girl. By the end of the week, her boots were filled with glue. She didn't complain, didn't report it. Reporting things made you a target. Staying quiet made you invisible. But invisible doesn't work when Brandon Shaw decides you've offended him just by existing. She beat him on a timed wall climb. By 3 seconds. Must have been a clock error, he told the instructor. Lily said nothing. So he waited. Next obstacle course, he clipped her harness when no one was looking. She fell hard. Her ribs screamed every time she breathed. And still, no complaint. At home, she said nothing. But James knew. Her stance had changed. Her walk was stiff. Her eyes avoided his. That night, he left his beer unopened and walked to the basement. Pulled the tarp off an old training dummy. It had dents where his fists had struck it 10,000 times. He stared at it for a long time. Then called upstairs, just once. Lily, downstairs. Now, when she came, he didn't offer her pity. He handed her gloves. You're gonna bleed, he said. But that's how steel is made. And the gloves slipped on. The first time Lily saw Brandon Shaw up close, he was laughing while a kid bled from the nose. It was in the courtyard after afternoon drills. A smaller cadet, barely 14, had tripped during formation. Brandon helped him up with a backhand across the face, then turned to the others and said, "Weakness spreads like disease. One infected limb ruins the body. Cut it off before it festers." Everyone laughed. Lily didn't. Brandon noticed. She turned to walk away, but he called out, "Cadet 047, right?" Thought ghosts didn't stare. She stopped. Didn't answer. "You climbed that wall fast last week," he continued. "Too fast." Still, she said nothing. He stepped closer. His voice dropped an octave. "Listen, you don't need to try so hard. You're not staying. This place chews up kids like you and spits out the parts." She looked at him then. Really looked. His boots were polished to the point of absurdity. His name patch sewn straighter than anyone else's. The kind of perfection only a parent could order from above. She answered without emotion. "We'll see." His smile thinned. That evening, her name was pulled from the weekend training rotation. No explanation. No warning. Just erased. She confronted the instructor. "Administrative reshuffle," he shrugged. "Nothing personal." That night at dinner, she pushed her food around her plate. James noticed but didn't ask. Instead, he said, "Tomorrow, we switch from endurance to response conditioning." She looked up, confused. "You're not training me for defense." "No," James said. "Defense is what you do when you're losing." He met her eyes, unblinking. "You're going to win." Monday, 0630. Fog curled low over the obstacle field. Lily stood at parade rest, surrounded by cadets. Brandon paced in front, barking orders like a drill sergeant. It wasn't his job, but no one stopped him. She was assigned to Station 3, balance beam, crawl net, then a low tunnel lined with electrified wire. It was grueling, designed to break rhythm and mental flow. Brandon leaned in as she stepped up. "Try not to cry this time, ghost girl." She ignored him. A whistle shrieked. She bolted. Balance beam, easy. She'd practiced worse at home. Crawl net, tight but familiar. Then the tunnel. Halfway in, her elbow caught something rough. She paused, looked up, caught a glint. A razor wire strand, newly added, coated in dust but sharp. It hadn't been there last week. She exhaled slowly, shifted her weight, crawled under, careful and steady. She made it through with a shallow scratch. Brandon's jaw tightened. The instructor, eyes on his clipboard, said nothing. Later, in the locker room, Lily approached him. "That wire wasn't regulation," she said quietly. He didn't look up. "You didn't get hurt." "That's not the point." He sighed. "Cadet Harper, if I stopped every cadet who felt targeted, we'd never finish a course. Focus on training, not politics." She stepped forward. "This isn't politics. It's sabotage." Now he looked at her, only for a second. Then he turned and walked out, muttering, "Watch yourself." She stood there, breath shallow. That night, she told James everything. He didn't curse, didn't yell. He pulled a chair to the center of the garage. "Saturday from here on," he said, "we're done playing their game." Thursday's session was weapons drills. Each cadet was paired off for sparring, rubber knives, strict rules, no body shots. But Brandon didn't follow rules. The moment the whistle blew, he faked a feint, then drove his elbow into Lily's side. She collapsed to one knee, breath gone. "Injury?" the instructor called. "Bored." "No, sir," Lily gasped. The drill resumed. Brandon circled her like a shark sensing blood. She adjusted her stance, swung low. He parried, stepped inside her guard, and jammed a shoulder into her ribs again. Pain ripped through her like fire. But she didn't fall. She fought. 2 blocks, 1 strike, another. Her blade tapped his chest. Point. Her win. Brandon stared at her. He looked surprised. "You'll pay for that," he whispered. She said nothing. In the locker room, her fingers trembled as she peeled off her shirt. A bruise was blooming beneath her ribs, deep purple already. At home, James was silent as he examined it. His eyes were stone. He didn't ask who did it. Instead, he walked to the closet, opened an old, dented footlocker. Inside, gloves, straps, field tape, chalk. He tossed her a roll of tape. "You'll wear that under your uniform. We trained through it." She caught it, hand shaking. "Dad, what if they break me?" He knelt in front of her. Not angry, not harsh. Let them try. He stood. "Tomorrow, 0400. We start with blindfolded drills." "Why?" "Because if they fight dirty," he said, "we'll fight smarter." And just like that, war had a new front. 0400 hours. The air in the garage was sharp with the sting of cold metal and old sweat. A single bulb swung above Lily's head, casting long shadows over concrete walls. She stood barefoot, hands taped, a blindfold tied around her eyes. Her breath was slow, controlled, but she was scared. "Again," James said, circling her. She struck the dummy too wide. Missed by inches. "Too slow. You're thinking like a cadet." "I want instinct." "I can't see." "You're not supposed to." He grabbed her wrist mid-swing. "What do you feel?" "Nothing." "Try again." She inhaled, focusing. Sweat beaded at her temple. She listened, floor creaking under his boots, air shifting when he moved. This time, she struck. The pad cracked under her fist. James nodded. "Better." For the next hour, she trained blind. Elbow strikes, wrist locks, disarm drills. He never raised his voice. He didn't need to. The weight of his silence did the job. When they finally stopped, Lily slumped against the wall, chest heaving. James knelt beside her, handed her a towel. For a moment, just silence. Then he said, "There's something I never told you." She looked over, confused. "Your mother was in the academy. Top of her class. Quiet like you. Stronger than anyone gave her credit for." Lily blinked. "What happened?" James's jaw tightened. She stood up to someone she shouldn't have. The general's office buried it. Lily froze. Her voice was barely a whisper. "Brandon's father?" He nodded once. "That's when I realized something," James said. "Sometimes the only way to expose a lie is to survive it long enough to drag it into the light." He met her eyes, voice like steel. "You ready to survive this, Lily?" She didn't hesitate. "No," she said. "I'm ready to end it." James didn't give her the name on a whim. It was earned. "Every mission has a call sign," he told her the next morning. "Yours is Whisper Blade. Silent strike. No trace. No mercy." From then on, training became ritual. Mornings, footwork and strikes. Noon, strength drills. Evenings, strategy. They studied Brandon's style, his overcommitment on counters, his weak left pivot, his arrogance in tight corners. James rewired an old drone camera and flew it over the academy's training field. At night, he and Lily reviewed the footage like generals planning an ambush. She took notes, drew diagrams, sketched drills on her mirror. James watched with quiet pride, but never said it aloud. One night, after 3 straight hours of sparring, she collapsed on the mat. Her face was drenched in sweat. Her lips chapped. Her hands raw beneath the tape. "I'm done," she muttered. "No," James said calmly. "You're at your beginning." She lay there, silent, then rolled onto her knees. "What happens if I lose?" "You don't." "And if they cheat?" "Let them," he said. "We plan for their lies. They won't plan for your truth." "Where'd you get your attitude?" "Your daddy give you a new spine for Christmas." Some cadets laughed, uncertain, forced. Lily turned, met his gaze, and smiled. Brandon's face twitched. He stepped toward her, but the instructor barked, "Form up." "Now." Later, in the locker room, his voice was quieter. "Closer." You think you're something now, huh? She didn't respond. You know what happens to people who get too big for their boots? She sipped her bag slowly, then turned, calm. I do. He raised a brow. And she leaned in, close enough for only him to hear. They fall. Hard. For the first time, Brandon said nothing. He just stared at her. Jaw locked. Eyes cold. That night, Lily found a screw loosened in her boot sole. A small sabotage. Just enough to trip her. She didn't report it. She didn't panic. She trained harder. And whispered to herself in the mirror, let them come. The garage wasn't a training space anymore. It was a crucible. James replaced the mats with concrete blocks, rigged sandbags to swing at random angles, and suspended makeshift targets from ropes. He built a balance beam from an old fence post and stacked old tires for explosive footwork drills. The hum of the old ceiling fan was now the soundtrack of war prep. Lily moved between stations like a machine. Timed, focused, silent. James never praised her. Never needed to. But that day something changed. She moved too fast on the beam, landed wrong. Her ankle twisted, and she hit the mat hard. She growled in frustration, slamming her fists into the ground. James crouched beside her, calm. Pain means your body is warning you. Listen to it, then rise. I'm tired, she snapped, eyes burning. I'm always tired. So is your mother. The room froze. Lily looked at him. His eyes were far away, somewhere deeper. She used to train here, James said. Same floor. Same bruises. Same fire. Lily sat up slowly. Why didn't you ever tell me? Because I thought I could protect you from all this. He looked around the room, voice low. But I was wrong. Lily stood, limping slightly, and stepped back onto the beam. I don't want protection, she said. I want revenge. James gave the slightest nod. Then we keep going. The obstacle course stretched across half a football field. Mud pits, climbing ropes, monkey bars, low crawl nets. It was designed to exhaust, to weed out the soft. Brandon's squad was up first. Lily's squad was second. As she stepped forward, one of the newer cadets, Travis, whispered to her, watch your step. Heard someone tampered with the net anchors. She glanced at him. Who? He didn't answer. Just walked off. Lily didn't flinch. She took her mark. Heart steady. Breath calm. Whistle blew. She ran. First hurdle, smooth. Rope climb, slower than usual, pain in her side still throbbing from training. Then the crawl net. Midway through, the anchors gave. The entire structure collapsed inward. Metal spikes dropped from loosened posts, one crashing inches from her head. The whistle screamed again. Instructors rushed over. She emerged covered in mud, coughing, eyes blazing. Medic, someone shouted. I'm fine, she spat, wiping blood from her cheek. Instructor Jennings knelt. This was rigged. No one answered. Later, James watched the footage. His fingers gripped the edge of the desk so hard his knuckles cracked. Calculated, he muttered. Time collapse. This was a message. He handed the tablet to Lily. Are you scared? He asked. She looked at the image, her crawling beneath a collapsing frame. No, why not? Because they tried to stop me, she said, fire in her voice. Which means I'm close. James stayed up that night. At 0200 hours, he tapped into the Academy's internal camera system through a buried backdoor he helped design years ago during a defense contract gig. He watched the footage again. One frame. One shadow. A cadet tampering with the crawl net at 0330 hours. Low hood. Gloved hands. He froze the frame. Zoomed in. Brandon's boy, he muttered. Mara's brother. He sat back, gears turning. They weren't just targeting Lily. They were testing boundaries, how far they could go before someone pushed back. He printed the image and slid it across the table to Lily in the morning. She barely looked at it. I figured. James studied her. Why didn't you tell me? Because I need them to think I'm blind. If they think I'm scared, they'll make mistakes. He paused. Impressed. You're planning a counterstrike. I'm not stupid, Dad. I know I can't take Brandon out in the hallway. He'll twist it. Spin it. So? I'm going to wait. For what? She met his eyes. The ring. The drill. One chance. One arena. I beat him in front of everyone. They can't cover it. James nodded slowly. And if he cheats? She tapped the blade on her belt. Then I cheat better. For the first time, James allowed himself the tiniest smile. She's ready, he whispered to himself. And across town, in a high-rise office, General Shaw received a call. Sir, the voice on the other end said, Harper's daughter. She's not breaking. The general stood, staring out at the city. Then break her father. James stood in the aisle of an old military supply store, fingers grazing a worn set of tactical binoculars. His mind wasn't on the shelves. It was on the general. He hadn't heard Shaw's name in years. Not since Afghanistan. Not since the tribunal where Shaw's testimony buried 3 good soldiers and let a war crime go unpunished. Back then, James walked away from it all. But now? Now Shaw was pulling strings again. This time, through his son. Through fear. Through manipulation. James left the store with a new microdrone, a body cam, and something illegal in most states, a scrambled frequency recorder. That night, while Lily slept, James positioned the drone outside the academy's second-floor windows. It hovered silently, catching footage from the instructor's lounge. Inside, Brandon stood laughing with 2 senior officers. A thick folder sat open on the table. Her name, Harper, Lily, stamped across it in red. Zoom. Audio filter on. James listened. She's a threat, one officer muttered. Not if she breaks during gauntlet, Brandon said. Dad's made sure her final match is against me. I'll end it there. Laughter. Another voice. What if she wins? She won't. James leaned back from the screen. He didn't blink. Didn't breathe. He opened a drawer and pulled out a slim USB marked Protocol Sarah. If they wanted to play dirty, he'd show them what war really looked like. The academy gym was dark at 0500. Cold. Empty. Except for the echo of breath. Lily crouched in front of the heavy bag, taping her wrists in silence. She was sore everywhere. Wrists stiff. Ribs still tight. But none of it mattered. She was getting faster. Stronger. She struck the bag once. Then again. Again. James stepped in quietly, watching. New stance, he said. Your weight shifted. She glanced at him. Compensating for the rib. He nodded. Good. Adapt. That's what predators do. He tossed her a combat vest. Put it on. We're doing disarm drills. Lily caught it midair, strapped in fast, and turned to face him. The drill began. James came at her with a practice baton, fast. She dodged. Redirected. Grabbed his wrist and twisted. But he swept her leg out. She landed hard. Again, he said, no softness in his tone. They repeated the drill 5 more times. By the 6th, she had him pinned. Her breathing was ragged. He nodded once. That's how you survive contact. She stepped back. I don't want to survive. I want to crush him. Then listen. He grabbed a marker and drew a diagram on the wall, Brandon's known combat patterns, pivot points, overextensions, stance weaknesses. Lily studied it like it was scripture. James pointed to the final circle. This is where he always leaves his left side open when countering a right swing. He's overconfident in his guard. She nodded. I'll end it there. James looked at her, not like a father anymore. Like a soldier evaluating a weapon. And Lily? She was becoming exactly that. It was just after lights out when James stepped outside to take a call. He didn't recognize the number, blocked, encrypted, bouncing through multiple locations. But the voice on the line? He knew it instantly. General Shaw. You're meddling again, Harper. James didn't respond. The voice continued, smooth and venomous. You know what I did for your career back then. What I buried for you. And now you're training your daughter to embarrass mine? Embarrass. James said. No. She's going to beat him. On record. In front of your whole rigged system. Then you leave me no choice. Click. Next morning, Lily's room was raided. Nothing stolen. Nothing obvious. But her gear was rearranged. One of her training boots, the left one, had the insole replaced with a thinner, warped copy. She noticed instantly. James examined it under the light. This was meant to roll your ankle, he said. They're getting nervous, Lily muttered. Good. Later that day, she confronted the instructor who led the search. Looking for anything in particular? she asked coldly. He didn't meet her eyes. Just routine protocol. Right, she said. Next time, bring better lies. She walked away before he could answer. The academy wasn't just turning a blind eye now, it was acting on command. James sent footage of the drone recordings to a secure server. He encrypted it, sent it to 3 backup drives, and to a lawyer friend in Virginia with a note. Only release if something happens to me or Lily. That night, he sat across from her at the dinner table. Neither spoke for several minutes. Finally, Lily said, "They're cornered." James nodded slowly. And cornered men do stupid things. She looked up, her voice clear. "Let's make them desperate." Sunday morning. Fog rolled low across the field, clinging to boot prints like ghosts refusing to leave. Lily stood on the academy's west grounds, eyes fixed ahead. Her lips were sealed. Her mind? Calculating, adjusting, sharpening. She wore her weighted vest under the cadet uniform. Every breath came heavier. Every step deliberate. Pain was part of the routine now, burned into muscle memory. James stood nearby, arms crossed. He didn't speak. They didn't need to. Their communication had evolved past words. One hand signal. A blink. A tilt of the head. It was the language of soldiers. She took position. He tossed her a padded baton. 6-count strike, redirect, disarm. She attacked. Left. Right. Feint. Duck. Recenter. Spin strike. James parried. Barely. Again. Again. Faster. Until sweat poured from her jawline and her fingers cramped from gripping the handle too tight. She collapsed to one knee, gasping. James crouched beside her. "This isn't about the drill." She looked up. "I need you to know," he said, voice low, "that when the moment comes, no one's going to help you. Not the instructors. Not the judges. No fair shot. You'll be alone." Lily wiped her face. "I'm used to alone." He shook his head. "No, not like this. They'll lie, cheat, tamper with gear, maybe even pull rank mid-match to stop you. You'll have seconds to win, or it's over." She didn't hesitate. "Then I'll end it in one." James stared at her a long moment, then nodded. The girl he once feared would be broken? She was already built for war. Night. James flew the drone again, this time closer, lower. He'd upgraded the microphone to pick up even whispered conversation through cracked glass. Inside a dimly lit conference room at the academy, General Shaw stood at the head of the table. Brandon sat beside him, eyes hard. 3 instructors listened in silence. James listened from home, headset on, Lily at his side. "He's panicking," James muttered. Listen to his voice. Shaw's tone was clipped, impatient. "We can't have this match turn into a damn courtroom. I want insurance." Brandon leaned forward. "She gets one hit on me. We call a medical stoppage. Instructor 1, that would trigger an investigation. Especially if she's winning. Shaw, then we sabotage her rhythm. Disqualify her gear. Pull the safety violation card." Lily's jaw clenched. James paused the feed. "They're going to bait you." "I know," she said coldly. "They'll play psychological too. You know what that means." She turned to him. "They'll hit my name. Mom. You. Anything they can. And I'll smile." James nodded. But there was one thing he hadn't told her yet. One backup plan he never wanted to use. His thumb hovered over a separate folder on the screen. Sarah incident. Full report. His wife's case. The proof of what General Shaw buried. He had footage. Testimonies. Names. And if Lily got disqualified, James would torch the entire system with it. But he didn't want to burn the world unless Lily had her shot to win it clean. He looked over at her. She was watching the footage again, frame by frame, studying every face. No fear. No doubt. Just fire. Monday morning. Drill class. The sun was harsh, beating down like punishment. Lily's squad lined up. Combat gear, sweat-drenched shirts, bruises blooming like paint. She was assigned a new partner for live grappling, Mara. Lily narrowed her eyes. Mara was all charm on the surface, quick laughs, perfect posture, the kind of girl who never got dirt under her nails. But Lily knew. Mara had been Brandon's eyes. She was there the day the net collapsed. Her accidental warnings always came too late. Too vague. Still, Lily played along. They locked up. Mara's grip was tight. "Nice bruise," she whispered in Lily's ear. "Rib still sore." Lily's knee shot forward, stopping a breath short of Mara's stomach. "Try me." The instructor barked. "Enough talking. Engage." They grappled. Mara was fast, trained. But Lily had spent the last month under a man who once disarmed terrorists in pitch-black tunnels. Mara didn't stand a chance. 3 moves later, Lily had her pinned. Elbow to neck. Body weight anchored. Mara tapped out. But Lily didn't release immediately. "Message received?" Lily asked calmly. Mara coughed. Loud and clear. Later, as they changed in the locker room, Mara approached her. "You know he's going to destroy you," she said. Lily didn't look up. "Who?" "You know who." Lily tightened her bootstraps. "If he could've, he would've already." "You don't get it," Mara said, stepping closer. "Brandon's not scared of you. He's scared of what happens if you win. His father, he'll burn down everything to protect that name." Lily stood. She stepped up to Mara. "Good," she whispered. "Let him try." She walked out without another word. Behind her, Mara just stared, pale. Because for the first time, she didn't think Lily was bluffing. It rained during Tuesday's endurance drills, a cold, biting drizzle that turned the training field into a slick mess of mud and shattered pride. Lily was midway through a time trial when she heard it. A sharp snap beneath her boot. She twisted mid-sprint. Her foot rolled inward. Pain shot up her leg like a lit fuse. But she didn't fall. She gritted her teeth. Kept running. James watched from the far end of the field under a gray hoodie, rain soaking into his sleeves. He saw the slight limp. Saw the hitch in her stride. After the course, Lily sat in the locker room alone. Her sock was soaked in blood. She peeled it off with shaking hands, revealing a gash across the arch of her foot. Embedded in the sole of her boot? A thin metal shard, the kind you'd only notice mid-sprint. Razor sharp. Tucked under the insole. Impossible to detect at first glance. Sabotage? Intentional. She took it out slowly. Wrapped it in a towel. Didn't flinch. She limped out into the rain, straight to James. Held out the metal. "Inside my boot." He took it. Studied it. Said nothing. But his jaw locked tight. "Someone wanted you to fall," he said. "They missed." He nodded. "They won't next time." She looked at him, dead serious. "Then I'll stop giving them chances." He looked at her foot, then met her eyes. "This is bigger now." Lily nodded. It always was. The academy's admin building was all glass and steel, clean, reflective, cold. It looked more like a corporate lobby than a military training complex. James walked in wearing civilian clothes. No rank. No insignia. But his presence filled the space like smoke. He sat opposite Director Colton, a woman with clipped words and colder eyes. "You're not authorized to request this meeting," she said flatly. He smiled. "Just slightly." "You're right. But you agreed to it." She leaned forward. "You're making waves. Spreading fear. I'm shining light." Her lip twitched. James slid a USB across the table. Drone footage. Recorded 2 nights ago. General shock coaching instructors to manipulate combat protocol. She didn't touch it. "Don't you think if there was any real risk, he'd be off the board by now?" James leaned in, voice low. "He's a relic. One good strike and he crumbles." She looked down at the USB. "You're bluffing." He didn't blink. "I don't bluff." He stood. "Your job isn't to protect power. It's to protect principle. One more step against my daughter, and I go public." He paused at the door. "Oh, and tell Shaw I'm not the same man he cornered 20 years ago." Outside, Lily waited in the car. When he slid in, she asked, "Did it work?" "No, then why go?" He glanced back at the building in the mirror. "To make them nervous." The gauntlet drill loomed, 9 days away. The event was legendary. Every cadet would face multiple ranked opponents in a single live exhibition. The final round? One-on-one. No holding back. It was meant to showcase elite skill. But this year, it was something else entirely. Brandon Shaw had been strategically placed to face Lily in the final round. Everyone knew it. No one said it. Instructors adjusted schedules. Cadets were randomly reassigned. The tension was visible in every hallway. And still, Lily trained like nothing had changed. That night, in the garage, she faced James across the mat. He held 2 practice knives. "Final test," he said. She picked up her own. The duel began. James came hard, faster than ever. No holding back. He went for the throat, the ribs, the feet. Lily dodged, struck, countered, but he disarmed her in 8 seconds. She stumbled back, chest heaving. He didn't gloat. He tossed the blade back to her. Again. This time, she led with her left, a feint she knew he'd read. He moved to counter. She dropped low, rolled, and swept his legs out. He landed hard. She had her blade at his throat. 3 seconds faster, he muttered. She stepped back, lowered the weapon. He sat up, smiled. "You're ready." "No," she said, eyes steady. "I'm still angry." James stood. "Good. Use it." He handed her a small device, a 1-button trigger. "What is this?" "Backup plan. If anything goes wrong, press it. It sends everything." "The Sarah file?" He nodded. She stared at the button, then put it in her locker. "I won't need it," she said, and walked away. James watched her go, and for the first time since this began, he was scared. For days to gauntlet. Lily walked into the academy's dining hall like a soldier entering a hostile perimeter. Heads turned. Conversations dropped to whispers. Eyes followed her like laser sights. She was no longer the girl in the background. She was the anomaly and the threat. Brandon sat across the room, surrounded by sycophants. He met her gaze. Didn't smile. Didn't blink. She didn't look away. He raised a glass in mock salute. She ignored him. When she sat, her tray was already tampered with mystery sauce dumped over her food, utensils swapped for bent forks. It was sloppy work and desperate. She didn't touch a bite. As she stood to leave, a voice cut the air. "You won't survive him." It was Mara. She leaned against the wall, arms folded, like she hadn't betrayed Lily half a dozen times already. Lily stepped closer. "You still spying for him?" she asked. Mara's smile faltered. "I gave you a warning." "You gave me a push," Lily said. "I should thank you." Mara's eyes narrowed. "You really think this is going to end with a clean win and a gold pin?" Lily didn't answer. Because no, she didn't. And that's why she was going to beat him anyway. The next morning, drills were canceled without explanation. The instructors stood quiet as Director Colton entered the grounds with 2 military officers in formal dress. Brandon walked beside her in full academy uniform, shoulders squared, expression locked in. He was being paraded. Promoted early. Decorated in front of the school before the gauntlet. A political stunt disguised as tradition. As Colton pinned a commendation badge to Brandon's chest, she announced, "Cadet Shaw will represent this institution as its finest." A symbol of discipline and leadership. Applause. Forced. Lily watched from the edge of the formation. Her fists clenched. Later that day, she was pulled aside by the same 2 officers. "Cadet Harper," one said, "you've been reassigned to Heat 2 of the gauntlet." "Why?" "No explanation required." She nodded slowly. "You're trying to wear me out before the finals." "Protocol is protocol." She stepped back. "If you're going to rig the match, at least do it with some finesse." One officer's eye twitched, but he said nothing. That night, James reviewed the schedule. "They've stacked your pre-rounds. You'll be exhausted before you even get to him." Lily stared at the lineup. "For matches in 36 minutes. No breaks." "They want me to burn out," she said. He leaned over the table. "Then we light the whole damn match." James had kept it hidden for years. A sealed envelope marked Sarah, buried beneath a floorboard in his home office. Lily never asked about it. Until now. She sat across from him, her hands wrapped in tape, bruises fresh. "Tell me," she said. "All of it." He hesitated, then opened the file. Photos, reports, testimonies, and one grainy video still. Her mother, standing beside another cadet, Sarah Lynn, smiling. A week before the accident, that wasn't an accident. She was investigating a pattern, James said quietly. Falsified scores. Unsafe training environments. Kids pushed beyond safe limits to create star cadets. Lily traced her mother's face on the page. "She found something?" James nodded. "And sent it to me." Days before she died, Lily's voice dropped, and then Shaw ordered the drill change. Sent instructors off book. Sarah died in that test. Your mother threatened to go public. Next week, she was in a car accident on a secured base road. Lily sat back, eyes glassy. Why didn't you tell me? Because I wanted you free of it, James said. But now, you're already inside it. And you're the last person they didn't plan for. She stared at the last photo. Her mother, arms crossed, standing in front of the academy building. Strong, unbroken. Lily slid the photo into her chest pocket. Then I'll finish what she started. James handed her a new comm piece. Encrypted. Live uplink. If anything happens, anything, I broadcast everything. She nodded, but her voice was steady now. Clear. No backup. He looked at her. I'm not planning to fall, she said. I'm planning to bury him. The room was silent except for the hum of the desk lamp. The file sat open between them. The name Sarah Lynn glared from every document like an unfinished sentence. Lily scanned a page marked classified in red across the top. She was 17, James said quietly. Graduated a year early. Fast-tracked through cadet rankings. Your mom mentored her like a sister. Lily found a training photo. Sarah stood next to her mother in fatigues. Their stances mirrored strong, focused. What happened to her? Lily asked, though she already knew the answer. James leaned back, voice heavy. She raised concerns about overexertion drills, ones that weren't officially logged. Brandon's name was in those logs. He was younger then, but already involved. She died in a training exercise. James shook his head slowly. She was killed in one. Lily's jaw clenched. Covered up. He nodded. Filed under system error. Equipment failure. No investigation. Your mother demanded a probe. Within a week, her car went off a bridge during a closed checkpoint transfer. Lily's voice was a whisper now. So Brandon's win isn't just a lie. It's built on blood. James said nothing. But in his eyes, there was war. I'm not walking into that ring for pride anymore, Lily said. He nodded. You're walking in with ghosts behind you. She picked up the Sarah file and slid it into her backpack. And for the first time, she didn't feel like a cadet. She felt like a soldier with a mission. That night, James received a call on an encrypted channel. A voice he hadn't heard in over 15 years crackled through. Harper, you really poking the Shaw machine again? James recognized the voice, Major Grant, one of the few left who hadn't sold their soul for a promotion. I need to know, James said. Did Shaw ever admit to burying Sarah's case? There was a long pause. Then, off record? Yes. Said she was just a risk not worth keeping. Said you were a risk too. James clenched his fist. You still got friends in comms, Grant? I might. Then I need a favor. Something big. Another pause. You planning to blow this up? No, James said. I'm planning to bury him where he can't crawl out. James hung up and turned to the map of the academy on the wall. A red marker circled the central broadcast room, where the gauntlet was live-streamed to families, donors, even military press. James smiled. Let's see how Brandon handles truth going public in real time. Downstairs, Lily trained with a weighted baton. Every swing came faster, cleaner. Precision now lived in her bones. He watched her for a long minute, and for the first time since he buried her mother, he believed she could finish this. Morning sun cracked over the field, painting everything gold. The final gauntlet schedule was posted on the academy's main board. Cadets crowded around, whispering. Lily didn't need to read it. She already knew. Brandon Shaw, final match. But something new hit her gut when she saw it printed in bold. Final, legacy versus legacy. She froze. Legacy? James walked up behind her, reading the board. They're not just setting you up to fall, he said. They're branding this as a showdown of military bloodlines. I don't have one, Lily said. James didn't speak for a second. Then, you do now. She looked at him. Your mother's legacy. Sarah's sacrifice. My silence. You're the living answer to every lie they've sold. Lily stared at the board again. But this time, her pulse slowed. Steadied. She wasn't walking into a trap anymore. She was walking onto a stage built to hide truth. and she was going to rip the curtain down. That night, she stood in front of the mirror, wrapped her wrists in new black tape, and stared at her reflection. Then she took a black marker and wrote 3 letters down her arm. Esir not forgotten, not erased. A promise written in ink. And when the first whistle blew, she'd turn every eye to it. James waited until Lily left for night drills before opening the wall behind his office bookshelf. It wasn't paranoia that made him hide the file there. It was survival. He pulled out a sealed bag and placed it on the table. Weatherproof, fireproof, untraceable. Inside were original printouts, scanned memos, voice transcriptions, and a partial audio file. His wife's voice, calm, deliberate, recorded during an unsanctioned conversation with Sarah just days before her accident. "I know they're using the cadet ranking system," she said, "to manipulate stats, push certain names upward. Shaw's son is top of that list." Then Sarah's voice, barely above a whisper. "I found training logs with conflicting timestamps. They're editing records. It's not just about pride. I think it's political." James sat in the silence that followed, eyes closed. This wasn't about a school anymore. This was a military bloodline being forged in the dark. And now his daughter stood right in its path, not to join it, to expose it. James backed up the files onto 3 encrypted drives. 2 went into dead drops. The third? He slid it into a small metal case and placed it inside the lining of Lily's combat vest. If they tried anything, she wouldn't need to press a button. The truth would already be on her back. The next day, Brandon was nowhere to be seen during morning drills. Instructors deflected questions. "Private prep," one muttered. "Final strategy planning," another said. But Lily knew better. Brandon wasn't strategizing. He was being groomed, not as a competitor, but as a symbol. She returned to her dorm late that evening to find her locker hanging open. Not broken, not forced, just open. She stepped inside cautiously. Nothing missing, nothing damaged. Then she saw it. A small slip of paper pinned inside her uniform collar, "Stand down or stay down." She stared at it for a long moment. No fear, just confirmation. Brandon wasn't coming to fight. He was coming to destroy. That night, James paced. "You want me to pull you out? We do it now," he said. "We leak the files, name everyone involved. I'll protect you." Lily shook her head. "If we do that, they spin it. Say I cracked under pressure. Call it a hoax." She looked him dead in the eyes. "This ends in the ring, or it never ends at all." James didn't argue. Instead, he opened the case holding her mother's old cadet badge. He placed it in her hand. She wore this the day she stood her ground. Lily clenched it. "So will I." Midnight. Lily stood alone in front of the mirror in the training garage. She stripped down to her tank top. Her arms were covered in faint scars, bruises in varying shades of purple and yellow. Her wrists taped tight. The word Esir still etched in marker down her forearm. She stared at herself. No makeup, no smile, no armor, just the raw reality of who she'd become. And suddenly, a flicker of doubt. What if I lose? What if they spin it anyway? What if this is just another grave for truth? Her breath caught. She looked down. At the scars. At the tape. At the bruises. Every one of them earned. She closed her eyes and pictured the girl she used to be. Small, quiet, trying not to draw attention. Then she heard it, her mother's voice, clear in her memory. "They'll always come for the ones who carry truth. That's how you know you're on the right path." Lily opened her eyes. She didn't see doubt anymore. She saw fire. She grabbed her uniform, slid her mother's badge into the inside pocket, then whispered to her reflection, "You're not the victim. You're the verdict." She didn't sleep that night. She didn't need to, because in less than 48 hours, the arena would roar. And for the first time in years, so would the truth. The morning of the gauntlet arrived like a silent drumbeat, heavy, slow, inevitable. Lily stood at the edge of the locker room, watching cadets rush past her in a blur of nerves and polish. Some nodded to her. Some looked away. Fear wasn't always loud. She pulled her uniform from the hanger, cleaned, pressed, but not by academy staff. James had done it himself. Folded it like armor. With intention. Inside the locker, Tucked beneath her belt was a note, written in his hand. You were born into truth, not silence. She strapped on the vest, slid the hidden drive into the back pouch, double-checked the comm device. It was live, but just before she closed the locker, a shadow filled the doorway. Director Colton. Expression unreadable. Eyes cold. Cadet Harper, she said. You are hereby ordered to submit to a last-minute performance review. Under what authority? Colton didn't flinch. New protocol, senior review clause. You've raised enough flags to justify caution. Lily stepped forward. I'm not going to a private exam room. Not today. Not with your history. Colton leaned in close. This isn't about fairness. It's about containment. And I'm not here to be contained, Lily whispered. For a long moment, neither blinked. Then Colton stepped back. You've made enemies in high places. Lily nodded. Good. That means I'm aiming right. In the field prep tent, James knelt to adjust Lily's shin guards. No words. Just silent, careful hands. Then he stood, looked her dead in the eyes. This is the last time I help you stand. Lily nodded. I won't need help getting up after this. She reached into her bag, pulled out a folded strip of black cloth, tied it around her wrist. What's that? James asked. A piece of Mom's cadet sash, she said. I kept it. He blinked hard. His voice softened for the first time in days. She'd be proud of you. Lily looked down, then back at him. No, she whispered. She'd be furious I waited this long. James smiled, just slightly. A loudspeaker crackled overhead. Cadets, report to staging zone. First match begins in 10. They walked together to the edge of the platform, where other cadets waited in various stages of panic and performance. But Lily was still, unshaken. James turned to leave, but she stopped him with one last question. Dad, what if I win? His face went still. Then you change everything. And with that, she stepped into the war zone built on medals and lies. Lily's name rang out over the field loudspeakers. Her first opponent stood across the arena, Cadet Mason, top-ranked in melee, arrogant, loud, but careless under pressure. They circled each other like predators unsure which was prey. Whistle. Mason lunged. Lily spun, redirecting with one hand, using his weight to shove him off balance. He stumbled, regained footing, threw a series of hard punches. She blocked, pivoted, ducked under his arm, and drove a low kick into his thigh. He grunted. Anger bloomed on his face. Lucky hit, freak. She didn't answer, because she didn't need to. Second whistle. Round 2. Mason came harder, wilder. Lily let him. She let him burn. His swings got sloppy, his steps wider. Then, she struck. Fast. Sharp. Elbow to rib. Sweep to knee. Palm strike to the neck. Mason collapsed. The ref stepped in. Harper wins. Gasps from the audience. Murmurs. Then cheers. But Lily didn't smile. She just walked to the edge of the arena. Whispered. Next. From the command booth, Brandon watched. No expression. His instructor leaned in. She's faster than the last time. Brandon shrugged. She's nothing. But for the first time. He didn't sound sure. High above the field, General Shaw stood in the Academy's executive box, back straight, arms folded behind him. A man used to control. But today, he paced. Behind him, a wall of monitors showed every angle of the gauntlet. His assistant entered. Whispered. 3 rounds in, she hasn't taken a hit. Shaw turned. Then she's being protected. No, sir. It's clean. He stared at the screens. Saw James in the stands. Saw Lily's posture, her precision. She's been trained by him, he muttered. Should we interfere? He didn't answer. Just walk to the console. Not yet. Let the audience believe in her. Build the hype. Then what? Shaw's eyes narrowed. Then we turn it against her. He tapped the final round schedule. You have your orders. If she gets to Brandon, we stack the odds. Her gear. Her match timer. The referee. And if she still wins? Shaw smiled. That's when we remind the world who really writes the rules. The arena was built like a gladiator pit. For elevated walls, 3 camera drones circling above, and rows of cadets packed into bleachers like modern spectators. A storm of noise filled the space. Cheers, whistles, footsteps pounding metal grates. But for Lily Harper, it was all silence. She stood in the prep tunnel, staring at the light that would flash green when it was time. The final four. For cadets, one-on-one, 3-minute matches. No gear changes allowed between rounds. Pure attrition. Behind her, an instructor called out, "Cadet Harper. Ready?" She nodded once. The light turned green. She stepped into the storm. Her next opponent, Cadet Rivas, was taller, heavier, with a reputation for brutal throws. They bowed. The whistle screamed. Rivas charged. Lily ducked, pivoted, but he clipped her shoulder with his forearm. Pain spiked. She didn't flinch. They traded blows for 20 seconds. He tried to grab her arm. She twisted free, landed 2 strikes to his ribs, then a knee to the stomach. He doubled over. She didn't hesitate. Armbar. Drop. He tapped. The whistle blew. Win. The crowd erupted, but not all cheered. In the command booth, Brandon slammed a fist into the control table. "She's burning through everyone." His instructor stared. "You're up next. You ready?" Brandon didn't answer, because no matter what the scoreboard said, he'd already lost something. Control. They gave her 2 minutes before the final round. No water. No rest. No reprieve. Her body ached. Bruises pulsed under her vest. Her jaw stung from a clipped hit. Sweat dripped into her eyes. And still she stood straight. Across the arena, Brandon Shaw stepped through the tunnel. Immaculate. Smug. Polished like a showpiece weapon. The crowd buzzed like static. They met at the center. Brandon offered a smirk. "You're tougher than I thought, ghost girl." Lily's stare didn't break. "I'm not a ghost," she said. "I'm the storm you didn't see coming." He leaned in slightly, voice low. "Doesn't matter. This ends the way my father planned. Then let's make him regret planning anything." The referee raised his hand. Final match. No interventions. No resets. Begin. The whistle snapped the air. Brandon struck first. Fast. Ruthless. A straight elbow feint followed by a sweep aimed at her legs. Lily evaded. He came again. Overhand strike. Body jab. She blocked. Absorbed. Shifted her weight. Time slowed. They circled. Then clashed. In the stands, James didn't blink. And in the control room, General Shaw leaned forward, eyes locked on the feed. 3 minutes. Everything they'd built, everything they'd buried, would live or die in those 3 minutes. A minute in, Lily was bleeding from her cheek. Brandon's first hit had caught her off balance, deliberately targeting an old bruise. But she didn't back down. She adapted. Her footing narrowed, her strikes quicker, more controlled. Brandon began to realize she wasn't trying to overpower him. She was reading him. His rage. His impatience. His pride. "You think you're better than me?" he hissed mid-grapple. "No," she replied, twisting out of his hold. "I know I'm not your puppet." He lunged, desperate, aggressive. She pivoted and slammed her elbow into his ribs. He gasped. Stumbled. The crowd's volume rose. She didn't let up. Jab. Duck. Counterstrike. Brandon managed to land a glancing blow to her collarbone, but she didn't falter. She used the momentum to trap his arm, spinning him into a kneeling lock. He resisted, hard. She whispered into his ear, "This is for Sarah," then shoved him backward. He landed hard. Gasps. Brandon scrambled to his feet, but the timer buzzed. Match over. Ref's arm raised. "Winner, Cadet Harper." The crowd erupted, but Lily didn't hear it. She was staring straight at the booth, straight at General Shaw, and he was already reaching for the emergency override. James saw it before anyone else. The way the feed stuttered. The emergency override about to cut the stream. He pulled the burner drive from his pocket, inserted it into his backup comm device. One click. Sarah file, live feed initiated. At that moment, every screen around the field flickered and shifted, not into a replay, into a recording. Lily's mother. "Sarah." General Shaw's suppressed audio. The words echoed. "She's a threat. Bury her." Gasps erupted in the stands. The crowd froze. Staff looked around in panic. The control room filled with shouting. Brandon, still on the mat, stared at the screens in disbelief. And Lily? She didn't move. She let the truth speak now. In the stands, cadets began pulling out phones. Recording. Uploading. One instructor tried to cut the main breaker. Too late. The files had been seeded across every live feed in the academy. Every parent, every board member, every silent enabler now saw everything. Lily walked to the center of the mat, looked up, and for the first time since the match began, she raised her fist, not for the win, but for everything they thought they could hide. The crowd didn't erupt. It held its breath. Screens across the arena looped the audio. Lily's mother, calm and determined, speaking about corruption. Sarah's name. Training logs. Unofficial drills. Then General Shaw's voice. Let her burn. I won't let some cadet girl derail my legacy. Gasps. Murmurs. Phones held high, capturing every second. In the center of the mat, Lily stood still, bleeding and unblinking. Brandon staggered to his feet. Turn it off, he barked, voice cracking. No one moved. In the command booth, Shaw barked orders at the tech team. Kill the feed. Kill it now. But the monitors were unresponsive. Static rippled across the panels. Then the image of Sarah returned, eyes bright, a future ahead of her frozen in time before the system blacked out entirely. Silence. Then applause. Not polite. Not weak. It started slow, one cadet, then another, until the whole arena roared. Not for a victory. For the truth. Brandon was still on the mat. His face pale, blank. Eyes wide with something new. Not anger. Not shame. Fear. Lily approached him slowly, boots echoing across the platform. He looked at her like a man finally seeing the shadow that had stalked him his whole life. She stopped inches from him. You had every advantage, she said quietly. Every door opened. And you still needed lies to win. He didn't speak. She stepped closer, lowered her voice. You weren't born strong. You were shielded, wrapped in armor your father built from other people's pain. His fists clenched. You don't know what she cut him off. I know exactly who you are. And now, so does everyone else. She walked away before he could respond. The ref tried to approach. Lily waved him off. Brandon turned to the crowd, searching for anyone who would defend him. No one moved. Even Mara looked away. That's when it hit him. This wasn't about losing a match. This was about losing what made him untouchable. The next morning, headlines flooded every news outlet with a signal no one could silence. General Shaw exposed in cadet scandal, files reveal years of institutional abuse, student death covered up. Audio confirms truth. James sat on the edge of his couch, watching the footage loop. His wife's voice echoed through the room. Strong. Unafraid. Lily stood by the window, wearing a borrowed hoodie, arms crossed. You ready for what comes next? James asked. She nodded, but her eyes stayed on the horizon. Across town, General Shaw was escorted out of the academy by military police. Cameras swarmed him. Reporters shouted questions. He said nothing. His jaw was locked. His medals glinted under the gray sky. But he didn't speak, because no answer could erase what the world had just seen. In the academy, Brandon's locker was emptied. Quietly, without ceremony. He didn't fight it, didn't speak. He just walked away while cadets turned their backs to him as he passed. And in her locker, Lily found a single folded note. You finished what we couldn't. M. She smiled for the first time in weeks. By midweek, the Academy Board issued a formal statement. Effective immediately, General Shaw is relieved of all duties. All pending gauntlet scores are frozen pending independent review. But that wasn't the real news. What mattered was the reaction on the ground. Cadets gathered around Lily like she was untouchable now, but she wasn't interested in glory. She stayed quiet, focused, watching. Because not everyone who smiled now had clean hands. In the main office, Instructor Jennings cleaned out his desk. He didn't look at anyone, just packed and left. 2 more staff members were placed under investigation. And in a private room, a full board of inquiry reviewed the Sarah file frame by frame, timestamp by timestamp. James had made sure they got everything. Lily sat beside him in silence. "Do you think it's over?" she finally asked. James didn't answer right away. Then, "No." But it started. They left the room together. And behind them, the Academy's legacy began to bleed out, one lie at a time. They asked her to speak. The Academy Board, now in damage control, held a private forum. Cadets, instructors, press representatives, and 2 generals from military oversight. Lily stood alone at the podium. She didn't wear her uniform. She wore her mother's jacket, faded, creased at the cuffs, the one they told her to throw away when she first enrolled. She stepped up to the mic. "No notes. I didn't come here to be a symbol," she began. "I came here to train, to learn, to serve." The room was silent. But what I found was a place where weakness was manufactured, where power came from your name, not your discipline, and where people who spoke up disappeared. She paused. Let the words sink in. You didn't fail because you were blind. You failed because you looked away. Several instructors shifted in their seats. "I don't want your medals," she said. "I want new rules. No more silence complaints. No more rigged drills. You don't get to build soldiers on lies anymore." When she stepped down, no one clapped. Not out of disrespect, but because they knew she hadn't just spoken. She'd carved it into the floor. It didn't take long. Once the Oversight Committee had the full recording, the trial was expedited. General Shaw sat in front of a tribunal of senior military judges. Decorated. Stoic. But his eyes gave it away, hollow, cornered. James testified first. "I served with him," he said. "I watched him cover up misconduct once. I didn't speak then. I'm speaking now." Then came the others, an old whistleblower, 2 instructors who admitted to pressured compliance, and finally, the medical examiner who had falsified Sarah's death certificate. Shaw's defense argued operational pressure and systemic failures. But the judges weren't listening anymore. The final ruling, stripped of rank, dishonorably discharged, criminal review pending. The media plastered his image everywhere. But none of that mattered to Lily. What mattered was this: the Academy no longer bore his name on the training hall. That plaque? She watched them pull it down, screw by screw. Legacy unmade. He tried to flip the story. A week after the tribunal, Brandon's face appeared on a carefully edited interview. He sat in a sharp suit, clean-shaven, rehearsed lines. "I was manipulated. I didn't know about the cover-ups." He called himself a victim of pressure, of his father's empire. But it didn't land. Not this time. People remembered the smirks, the sabotage, the arrogance. Clips from the gauntlet went viral again, this time juxtaposed with his interview. "He's lying. Look at his face," one comment read. "I was there." He mocked her injuries. He knew, another cadet posted. Brandon didn't return to campus. He didn't face charges. But he lost something worse: reputation, future, respect. And for someone built on privilege, that fall hurt more than any punch Lily ever threw. The Academy hosted a final forum before the semester break, a symbolic closing. New leadership, new regulations announced, open reporting lines, a rotation of impartial drill reviewers. Lily didn't sit on stage. She watched from the back row, hoodie up, fingers tucked in her sleeves. When her name was mentioned in passing, the cadet who stood for truth, she didn't move. This wasn't about applause. This was about accountability. After the assembly, a younger cadet approached her. Nervous, hands fidgeting. "Can I ask how you did it?" she asked. "Weren't you scared?" Lily gave a small smile. The kind that came from knowing exactly how much pain survival had cost. "I was scared every day," she said. "Then how did you keep going?" Lily glanced out the window, then whispered, "Because fear stops most people. But it also hides the path. And I wasn't going to die not knowing what was on the other side of it." Lily walked through the Academy halls one last time. The walls felt different now. No longer like barriers. More like echoes. She could still feel the stairs, the weight of expectation pressing down on every step. But this time, she didn't shrink beneath it. She walked past the honors wall, where once Brandon's face dominated the center plaque. It had been replaced, not with hers, but with the Academy's crest and a simple inscription: "Honor has no name. Only choices." She stopped for a second, reading it, then smiled. Just faintly. At the exit, James waited. He leaned against the column, arms crossed, not speaking. But his eyes held something she hadn't seen in years. Peace. He held out her duffel. You ready? Always. They walked side by side to the truck. Wind carried the distant thrum of cadets still in training, running drills, shouting commands. Lily turned back once. No anger. No regret. Just release. That night, in the garage where it all began, James opened a small box on the workbench. Inside, 2 worn dog tags, a cracked flash drive, and a photo of Sarah in uniform. He handed Lily the lighter. You sure? He asked. She nodded. I don't need it anymore. And the world already has it. He placed the flash drive in a steel tray. Lily flicked the lighter, flame steady. She paused. I used to think burning it would make me feel powerful. He waited. But now, it just feels like closing a chapter. She touched the flame to the drive. It melted slow. Sparks popped, plastic hissed. The photo of Sarah remained. Untouched. James slid it into a small frame. No more hiding, he said quietly. They stood together in silence. Not over what was lost, but what had finally been let go. 2 weeks later, a quiet ceremony took place in a sterile Defense Department conference room. No press. No cameras. Just a handshake from the Secretary of Military Ethics and a medal placed gently into Lily's palm. For bravery under institutional threat, the certificate read. She tucked it into her bag without looking. Outside, James leaned against a bench under a patch of late afternoon sun. How'd it go? He asked. They gave me a pin. He grinned. Is it shiny? She smirked. Blinding. He studied her for a long beat. You proud? She shrugged. I didn't do it to be proud. What then? She turned to face him. I did it because no one else did. That silence between them wasn't heavy anymore. It was earned. She sat beside him. And for the first time since this all began, there was no war left to plan for. A letter arrived a few days later, neatly folded. No return address. No signature. Lily didn't need one. The handwriting was Brandon's. I don't expect forgiveness, but I wanted you to know. I'm trying. For the first time in my life, I'm trying to be someone who doesn't run from truth. You made me see what my father never did. That power isn't strength, and lies aren't armor. I hope one day you can stop hating me. She read it twice, then set it on fire over the sink. James walked in mid-burn, watched the flames turn the apology to ash. Too harsh? She asked without looking up. He shook his head. You owe him nothing. She let the last corner blacken, then rinsed the sink clean. Forgiveness? It wasn't weakness, but it wasn't owed either. She'd already done the hard part, survived him. This was just a page she didn't feel like keeping. James didn't talk about the day he buried his wife. Not to friends. Not to Lily. He just kept moving. But now, 2 weeks after the tribunal, he stood at the edge of a cemetery plot. A stone marker faded from years of weather and denial. Amanda Harper. Daughter. Soldier. Truth teller. Lily stood beside him, silent. The wind moved her hair across her face, but she didn't brush it away. He cleared his throat. The words came slow. I thought staying quiet would protect you. She looked at him. It didn't. He nodded. I know. There wasn't anger in her voice. Just honesty. I thought if I told you everything, you'd grow up afraid of the system I once fought for, he said. So I buried it. Her. The truth. And you carried it anyway. Lily didn't speak. Instead, she reached into her jacket, pulled out the medal they'd given her, the one she never wore. She laid it gently on the headstone. You deserve this first, she whispered. James turned his face slightly, blinking harder than he meant to. In that moment, they weren't a soldier and a daughter. They were 2 survivors of the same war. The news came quietly. No headlines. No ceremonies. Just a memo leaked quietly across military social boards. Academy 17 will be shut down indefinitely pending full structural and command review. Lily read it on her phone while sitting in a small cafe across town. The same one she used to walk past on weekends but never entered. Now, she stirred her coffee absently, rereading the memo. A part of her wanted to feel triumphant, but what she felt was something quieter. Closure. She looked around the cafe, teenagers laughing at a corner table, two old veterans swapping lies, a couple whispering over a slice of pie. No one knew her name here. No one watched her. And it felt good. She leaned back. For the first time in years, her shoulders didn't feel like armor. Online, the match footage had been viewed over 20 million times. Clips of Lily dodging Brandon's attacks, of her bleeding and standing tall, of her raising her fist after the files dropped. They'd gone global. They called her Whisper Blade in the comments, in news panels, in memes. But Lily didn't post about it, didn't comment, didn't monetize. Because what the world called bravery, she still remembered as grit, blood, bruises, and silence. One night, walking past a late-night newsstand, she saw her own face on a magazine cover. The girl who didn't bow. She didn't stop to read it. She just smiled faintly and kept walking. She hadn't bowed, but she also hadn't broken, and that meant more than any headline. There was one thing she hadn't done. So one quiet Sunday, Lily sat cross-legged on her bed, a pen in one hand, a folded paper in the other. No audience. No drama. Just her. She started to write. "Hey, Mom. I'm sorry it took me this long to see the war you were fighting. I thought I was on a different path. I wasn't. They tried to erase you. They failed. Brandon's gone. His father's legacy is ash. And the files, your voice, it's out there now. Everyone heard you. I wish you could have seen what came after. But maybe you already knew. I wore your badge during the match. I didn't say anything at the time, but it made me feel like I wasn't fighting alone. Thank you for being brave first. You just didn't live long enough to see the end of the battle. I did." She paused, let the pen hover, then signed it. "Love, your daughter." The one who didn't stay quiet. She folded the letter, tucked it inside her mother's old jacket, and zipped it closed, like a message sent into the past, and finally delivered. The academy grounds were abandoned now. Lily returned one last time, not in uniform, not as a cadet, but as a woman coming back to confront the place that forged her pain into power. Weeds crept through cracked pavement. Banners once waving above the training field now hung in tatters. The main entrance had been stripped of signage, nothing but cement and silence. James stood beside her at the gate, hands in his jacket pockets. "You don't owe this place anything," he said. "I know," Lily answered. "I'm not here to pay a debt." She stepped inside slowly, through the courtyard, past the gauntlet ring. She stopped at the old wall climb, the one she failed on her first day. Her hand touched the worn wood. "You remember when I fell here?" she asked. "I remember thinking the fall didn't matter. What mattered was you stood up like it pissed you off." She let out a small laugh, sharp, soft, real. They stood in silence. Then Lily pulled a small tin from her bag. Inside, a single patch. Her cadet number. She pinned it to the wall with a rusted nail. Not as a tribute, but as a warning. "This is what truth costs," she said, and walked away. A month later, the first message arrived anonymously in Lily's inbox. "I saw what you did. I was silenced at my division for reporting misconduct. If you're building something, I want in." Lily stared at the screen. Then a second message came. And a third. Voices. Survivors. Cadets. A few instructors. People who saw the story and didn't just clap. They remembered their own buried truths. James looked over her shoulder one night and asked, "You thinking what I think you're thinking?" She nodded slowly. "I'm done playing defense. It's time someone builds a system that protects the right people." He studied her expression. "What would you call it?" She tapped the keyboard once. Typed 3 letters. Your truth wasn't done echoing. Now, it had infrastructure. She called the first meeting in a rented garage. Nothing fancy. Just folding chairs, a projector, and a black tarp on the wall with a chalk-written phrase, "No more silence." 8 people showed up. Then 12. Then 30. Instructors from other regions. Cadets from shut-down academies. A few lawyers. 1 journalist. All of them carried wounds. But all of them were awake now. Lily stood at the front, calm. "This isn't about revenge," she began. "We already won that battle. This is about the system we leave behind. about fixing what they said couldn't be changed. A woman raised her hand. You think they'll listen? Lily didn't hesitate. No, but they'll have to respond, because we're not whispering anymore. After the meeting, James pulled her aside. You sure you're ready for this? I wasn't ready for war, either, she replied. But it still came. He placed his hand on her shoulder, not as a father, but as an equal. Then let's make sure we finish this one our way. The headquarters wasn't glamorous. A second-hand office above an old auto repair shop. Scuffed floors. Dusty windows. But Lily looked around at the whiteboards filled with diagrams, policy maps, corruption case notes, and real-time reports, and saw something more powerful than any battalion. Accountability. She walked past the table where a former instructor was outlining a whistleblower protection program, past two cadets uploading encrypted training data to a secure archive, and into the small room she used as an office. A folder sat on her desk. Inside, an invitation. Defense Ethics Forum, keynote panelist. Topic, Post-Corruption Reforms, the Survivor's Roadmap. She set it down, then stared out the window for a moment. Outside, kids were training in a public self-defense class run by volunteers. Not because someone told them to, but because they saw someone who didn't back down and followed her lead. She didn't feel like a hero. She felt like a hammer, still reshaping the world one strike at a time. The conference room was sleek, modern, a long panel desk, polished steel walls, a livestream banner scrolling across a digital screen overhead. Global Defense Ethics Summit. Day 2 panelists spoke in careful words. Policy jargon. Comfortable hypotheticals. Then Lily was introduced. They said her name, her title, her organization. But it was when she stepped to the mic that the room finally leaned in. She didn't start with a thank you. She didn't smile. She just stared at the packed hall and said, there are institutions right now hiding broken cadets, destroyed careers, covered deaths, and they're calling it training. Silence. Cameras clicked. Pins froze mid-note. She continued, I'm not here to reform your old systems. I'm here to replace them. Because some things don't need revision. They need demolition. A murmur rippled through the room. One panelist tried to challenge her. Don't you think that's extreme? Lily leaned forward. So was what they did to my mother. That was the moment. The one they couldn't spin. Because truth, when spoken with nothing left to lose, doesn't need to be polished. It just needs to be heard. 2 weeks later, Lily sat in a quiet cafe with a USB in her pocket. Across from her, an investigative journalist slid a folder across the table. Inside, names, institutions, falsified drill logs, recovered complaints, a web of silence stretching across 5 regions. The journalist's voice was low. If we drop this, the board goes nuclear. Lily sipped her coffee. Then drop it. And what if they come after you again? Lily didn't blink. They already did. I'm still here. She handed over the USB, encrypted backups of every file in her system. You sure you want to go public with all of it? He asked. She met his eyes. Every single name on that list has someone they buried, someone they gaslit, someone they tried to erase. She leaned forward. Now it's their turn to be unlisted. That night, the report broke. SER founder releases global blackout list of corrupt training facilities, 143 officers named. It trended for 6 straight days, and not one person on the list came forward to deny it, because they knew who sent it, and that she never fired blanks. It wasn't much. A modest house outside city limits, nestled between tall trees and a wide gravel path. A shed converted into a training space. Wind chimes on the porch. James had built most of it by hand. Lily moved in quietly. No ceremony. No photos. Just boxes and breath. She hung 2 things in the hallway. 1, a framed black and white photo of her mother, Sarah, and a younger James in uniform, laughing. 2, the cadet patch 047, still rusted at the edges, still stained with the memory of what it cost to earn. The house wasn't about escaping war. It was about building something that wasn't built on pain. Every morning, she trained in the yard. Every evening, she wrote policy reports. And some nights she did neither. She just sat on the porch, eyes up, quiet, but not silent. Never again. Months passed. Lily was invited to a televised ceremony in D.C. A newly launched training academy had announced it would be named in her honor. She declined. Instead, she asked them to name it after Sarah. She sent a short message to the event host. Heroes aren't the ones who survive. They're the ones who lit the path when no one believed it could be walked. The Academy board agreed. Sarah Lynn Academy for Ethical Training was unveiled on a clear spring morning. And though Lily didn't attend, she watched the live stream from her porch. She watched them speak her mother's name, not as a tragedy, but as a standard. James stood beside her. She'd be proud, he said. Lily didn't answer right away. Then, no, she whispered. She'd be waiting for what comes next. Because for her, the mission wasn't over. She was just finally fighting it on her own terms. The sun was setting slow, spilling orange across the porch where Lily sat cross-legged with a toolkit at her feet. Her hands were wrapped in gauze, not from battle, but from pulling old nails from new wood. She was rebuilding the old shed into a training space. But this wasn't for combat. This was for others. Young girls from town who'd started coming every Saturday. Some had scars, some had fear in their eyes, and all of them had heard about the girl who stood up to a general. They didn't ask for autographs. They asked for gloves. That afternoon, one of them, Camila, 13, anxious, quiet, had landed her first clean punch on the bag and burst into tears. I didn't think I could do it, she'd said, voice shaking. Lily had crouched beside her, offered water, and replied, "They count on that." Now, in the quiet, Lily closed the last toolbox latch and leaned back. James walked out with 2 mugs of coffee. "You good?" he asked. "Getting there." He handed her the cup. They didn't talk much anymore, not out of distance, but out of understanding. They'd said the hard words. Now they shared the silence that follows truth. A light breeze stirred the trees. Somewhere in the distance, someone laughed. Lily listened to the sound and realized something strange. She didn't brace for impact anymore. She didn't flinch at peace. It was Lily's first time back at a military installation since the shutdown of Academy 17. She wasn't in uniform. She didn't need it. She walked through the entrance of the new Sarah Lynn Academy with her hands in her jacket pockets and her mother's badge tucked inside the lining close to her chest. The halls were still new. Fresh paint. Steel blue tones. But the faces were familiar, raw, uncertain, hopeful. Real cadets. Not pawns. In the main lobby, a giant mural now covered the wall. Not of soldiers, but of voices, names of whistleblowers, reformers, survivors, arranged in the shape of a rising flame. And at the center, Sarah Lynn, 18, cadet. Unbroken. Lily stared at it. A young woman approached, blonde braid, worn boots, barely 20. "You're her daughter, right?" she asked softly. Lily nodded. The cadet swallowed hard. "I'm here because of her. Because of you." Lily didn't say anything at first, then looked the girl in the eye. "You're here because you chose to be." The girl smiled and saluted. Lily didn't salute back. She offered her hand instead. Respect earned, not demanded. They shook hands. And for the first time in her life, Lily walked the academy halls not as someone who needed to prove herself, but as the reason others knew they didn't have to stay silent. The old combat vest sat folded on the table. The same one Lily wore the day she exposed everything, stitched, scarred, soaked in memory. The blood had been washed out, the badge removed, but the weight, still there. She looked at it for a long time before closing the box for good. Outside, her students were already lining up. Camila, Lena, Haru, a few new faces too. Most were younger, but not all. A few were older than Lily, survivors in their own right, drawn by something deeper than drills or discipline. They weren't there to become soldiers. They were there to become unshakable. Lily stepped outside. The sky was wide, the air clear. She didn't carry weapons anymore, just the words others were too afraid to say first. James stood by the gate, nodding silently as she passed. She gave one last glance toward the trail that led back to the road, the one she'd walked down alone, bruised and uncertain, all those years ago. But she didn't walk it anymore, because she'd already rewritten what waited at the end. The class began with a single command, not barked, spoken. Let's begin with what they never taught us. And just like that, the girl they tried to silence became the voice that echoed beyond every gate they ever built. What if the strongest weapon isn't your fist, but the truth they thought you'd never have the courage to say out loud? Now you tell me. Where did you watch this story from? What city? What screen? What moment made you hit play? Drop it in the comments. Let's see how far truth travels. And hey, if this story made your heart pound, your hands shake, or your soul scream, yes, even once, hit that like button like you just threw your first punch. Subscribe like you're joining Lily's team. And tap that bell so you don't miss the next truth they don't want you to hear. This wasn't just a story. This was a warning shot. And we're just getting started. See you in the next one. #Whisperblade, #Justice doesn't bow, #You heard her.